Hey board gamers, this is Will with a Cardboard Minute. I wanted to talk real quick about a few board games that are leaving my collection and why. And also to share with you guys that, I, like probably many of you, struggle with getting rid of games. I don't know if it's an attachment issue or I'm hoarding, but I've ran out of space. My shelves are full, and I've got more shelves around too, and I just don't have room or time to play all the games. And so, unfortunately, I have to make some tough decisions. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments, how do you decide what games to get rid of? Again, I do struggle, so any tips would be helpful. Or if there's any recommendations you see that you guys think I should get rid of, then put that in the comments too. So just to go through them quick, first two are a couple of more social-oriented games. We have Dead Last. Maybe it's a factor of not being in large groups for the last couple of years because of COVID, but my plays with Dead Last had always been quite enjoyable. They always were good, and with some a little bit of second guessing and back and forth. But really, there are still some better social deduction games out there. And again, while this one was fun, maybe it's just because I haven't played it in a while, but the luster has kind of faded on this one. And a group could still pick it up and have a good time, but my group is pretty well done with it for now. So I'm going to pass on with that. Next is Spyfall. This is the second version. Spyfall 1 and 2 are pretty much the same. I think 2 plays with more players though and has different locations. And this can really generate some amazing times, but it is extremely group dependent. And maybe that's why I'm getting rid of this one. It can work just amazingly with one group of people, and with a slightly different group, it could fall just incredibly flat, and nobody has fun. And that's too bad. I'm looking for games that work all the time, not just some of the time. So if your group is interested in something like Spyfall, I still recommend giving it a try if you like these sorts of deduction games. The premise is hilarious. You are essentially everybody is a spy or is a agent working in these locations, but there's a spy from the outside who doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. And the idea is like someone's new in a job, they have no idea what they're doing, and you're going around the table asking each other questions about what you're doing on the job. You're trying to reveal in your answers so that you both know what the location is, which is a secret to everybody, to the spy, but everyone else knows the location. So you're trying to reveal the fact that you also know it and you are not the spy, but you're also trying not to reveal the location to the spy. Because if the spy can guess where they are or where everybody is, then the spy still wins. A couple of issues with the game, which can be easily rectified. One is that there's only one clue sheet that shows all the locations. They really should have had some sort of little card or printout or flyer or something that is given to every player so that everybody can look at the locations or have it in front of them. Because it can definitely be a dead giveaway when there's one person at a table who's looking over to see what the possible locations are. So fun game, but it just didn't work enough of the time for me, and I play with a lot of different people at meetups. It's never quite the same group, so I just had to pass on this. Next one, I'm pretty sad to see go, and is Star Realms. Star Realms is a deck building game where you are fighting off typically head to head. You are building up your collection of spaceships, and there's some interesting mechanics where spaceships will trigger some additional abilities if you have other spaceships of the same suit or the same faction also in your hand that turn. And as you can see from this huge box, I have a lot of it. I've got a ton of Star Realms, including some of the larger bosses and automatons and special cards and things. It is all fairly well sorted. I've got card sleeves too with it, but it just came to the point where it was too much, and it wasn't fun anymore having to sort things. But also the game just kind of felt samey after a while. You were mostly doing the same things, even with the expansions. It just was. Most of the expansions were just more of the same, and that can sometimes be good. But there comes a point where either you want something fresh or you just want to move on. And sadly, I think I'm just going to move on with this one. It is still a fantastic head-to-head game, but it's just too much right now. You know, I would prefer to have a smaller, sleeker box where I can just take it out and do a couple quick sessions and then be done with it and have fun. So that's going to go. It is, however, being replaced with Shards of Infinity, which I think is slightly more complicated in some ways because it not only has the faction triggering, but there's also multiple ways of winning. But I also kind of like that too. So it is being replaced. Next is Horrified. I know this one is a bit of a darling in the board game community, and for good reason. It is a very simple to learn, excellently designed cooperative game that can also be played solo. If anybody really wants me to play a solo game on the channel before I get rid of it, let me know. And it also may make a quick appearance in a Halloween themed video in the future. But I will be getting rid of it. And not because I dislike the game, but because my family disliked it. I tried playing this with my wife and children, and they just did not relate to the theme. They thought it was boring, and that's too bad because I probably would have kept it otherwise. But I can kind of see where they're coming from. You are mostly just running around, picking up items and delivering them to locations. Whether that is, you know, with either the mummy or the werewolf or Frankenstein, this monster, you are essentially still doing the same thing. You know, I know the bosses all have a little mini game associated with them, but they're really all just comes down to picking up a certain type of item, deliver to location, and don't get caught. Don't let the villagers get caught, and that's basically it. So, you know, as much as I'm sad to see this leave my collection, if I can play other games more often by seeing it go, and especially if my family won't play with me, then it's going to have to go in the pot. I'll stack these so you guys can see. Horrified is also being replaced in some ways by the Back to the Future board game, also from Prospero Hall, I believe. And Back to the Future does some similar things where there's a bit of pick up and deliver and moving things around. But the Back to the Future theme does resonate a lot more. My wife is a huge fan of the movies. And there's I feel like a lot more theme comes through the Back to the Future cooperative game. I've got the Aliens game waiting to go. You'll probably see some of that later on. And it's also kind of in the same line of a easy cooperative. And we'll see how that one goes. Next is Neta-Tanka. This is the large deluxe version from the Kickstarter. And this is what pains me to lose Neta-Tanka. Is again, not because it's a bad game, and it's especially hard to get rid of because it is the deluxe version with added shaped wooden pieces, screen printed meeples or like figures that you use to place on the board. It's got extra cards and things. It's got solo. There's a separate board that you can use for a mini expansion. You can even play a higher player counts, which I don't really recommend. And it is a fun game. There is a very interesting mechanic where when you're placing your workers on the map, if you can place them so that they are in a location that is connected, then you will get a bonus action that is shown on the branch between them. So not only are you trying to get the locations, the actions you need, but you're trying to capitalize on those connections to have stronger actions and better turns. Of course, your opponents are trying to block those as well. Also, you are taking turns placing workers on locations, but then afterwards you resolve all of each player's workers in turn order. And there's a really interesting tie-in mechanic to that, where certain resources will run dry based on the supply. So, meat and pelts in the village might start to run out. But if a worker goes and hunts down a buffalo, and then another worker goes to prepare that buffalo, then it repopulates or refills those resources. And so you are looking at both the timing for when players are going to go take those actions and when to capitalize on getting as many resources as you can from the locations that supply them. So it's very interesting. I have played this a good number of times, both with multiplayer and solo. And the solo is an excellent little puzzle where you have a certain number of rounds to fulfill a very difficult objective. So it can be quite puzzling. But the biggest knock against this game is that I found that I really enjoy games, especially games that are more of a Euro-style worker placement game. I really enjoy games that build upon themselves, or that you are taking stronger and better actions, or doing more, growing throughout the game. And Neta-Tanka just doesn't do that. It is, unfortunately, the same all the way through. You're doing the same things at the end of the game in the same amounts as you were at the beginning of the game. And for a game of this length, which is really not terribly long, it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours long, it's still, I would have preferred if there was some sort of upgrading or discounts, or maybe your village got stronger as the time went by, or maybe you got better at hunting buffalo or something like that, better at taking the canoe actions, something that would have made the pursuit more worthwhile. And it's just personal preference, I think. But games that do have an arc or a growth to it just sing to me more. They speak to me, and I vibe to them much more frequently. So unfortunately, I had to make the call, and Neta-Tanka is gonna go. So which is too bad, again, because it's the Kickstarter version. It's probably not easy to get anymore for the Kickstarter. But that's it. Hopefully someone else will find my copy and on Kijiji or Facebook, and we'll hopefully have a wonderful time playing it. So that comes down to, how do I sell my games? And I have sold a little bit in the past, usually on Facebook. There's a pretty strong Facebook board game selling group here in Ottawa, and which is probably what I'll use again. But I always have a tough time just getting to the point where they get onto that group and sell them. So I think this video hopefully will encourage me to finally list them. These have been on my sale pile for a little while now, and they need to get out the door. I don't have room for them. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. This is Will with the Cardboard Minutes. Have a great week, and say goodbye to those games. It's sad, but there are so many more games coming out all the time, and I gotta make room for more.